Yo, what's going on, guys? Today, we're gonna be ranking every deck in Clash Royale. We don't actually have every deck, but we have pretty much one deck for every win condition and also quite a few of the classic decks. We're gonna be ranking these decks based on how strong they are in the current meta and how long they've been good for or how long I think they'll be good for. I might also add a couple other factors like how much skill it takes to play a deck, and I'll probably also say what the deck says about you if you main it. To start off with, we have 2.6. This deck has definitely been good for the longest time in Clash Royale. It's not super good in the current meta, but it's been viable for a very long time, so just because of that, I have to give it a low A tier rating. The skill cap of this deck is definitely overrated. It's not too hard to play, so if you just pick it up, you can definitely learn it in, I don't know exactly how long, but it's not going to take you a super long time. If you're a 2.6 player, either people will come up to you and graciously bow down in front of you, or they might just give you a quick slap in the face. It's kind of just a guessing game when it comes to that. Next up, we have Goblin Drill with the Evo Wallbreakers Evo Bomber. This deck kind of just drilled its way into the arena ever since the new evolutions came out, but sometimes it just drills its way right back out of the arena when stuff happens. I don't know, Goblin Drill always comes in and out of the meta so randomly. But it is definitely a top 3 or maybe top 5 deck in the game right now, and it's very easy to play. I don't think it'll be good for too long though, but even so, I'll still give it a high A tier rating. Next up, we have Royal Hogs. This is the deck I used to finish top 1 on ladder. Not this exact deck, I did have the cannon over Evo Bomber. Evo Bomber makes this deck so broken, but I don't like having no building in the deck. I think it'll go back to cannon soon once Evo Bomber gets more balanced out. But, man, this deck has been good for so long. Not this exact deck, but pretty much this deck. Ever since Archer Queen came out, Royal Hogs Earthquake has been so good. And it's not been good like 2.6, it's been a lot better than 2.6. It's been like consistently one of the top decks, not consistently viable as 2.6 is. So, I think we have our first S tier deck here. If you play this deck, you're definitely a well-cultured gentleman or lady. And yeah, well, let's say low S tier for now. We'll see what other decks we decide to bring up here. Next up, we have Hog Earthquake. See, if you play Hog Earthquake, your father is definitely very present at home, and you have a very respectable way of playing the game. And people love you. You're a great person. You're a very high skill Clash Royale player, and you should definitely consider playing in the Clash Royale League World Finals to take home the money that's rightfully yours. So for that, I don't know. The thing is, it's not super good in the current meta because the Evo Bomber decks definitely do kind of destroy it, but it has been viable for a long time. Ever since 2020, or at least 2021, it's been a very solid deck. It does have its bad metas, but it's still pretty much always viable. Even though it's not the best now, I'm pretty sure it'll be good quite soon once the other cards get balanced out. So, Hog EQ. Man, I don't know. I think I'll say A tier, maybe actually at the top of the A tier for now. We have Balloon Cycle. This exact Balloon Cycle deck is pretty new, but Balloon Cycle itself with just a few different variations has been viable for quite a long time. So it's kind of hard to say. This deck isn't too good right now. I mean, I feel like so many decks aren't too good right now because they just get overshadowed by Evo Bomber decks and Evo Wallbreakers decks, but this deck is still nice, so I'll put it in the B tier for now. Maybe towards the bottom of the B tier. Oh, not this deck. This deck is the most broken deck in the game, definitely the #1 deck in the meta, and it's been good for so long. It's been good forever, pretty much. I mean, this exact deck hasn't been good forever, but if you think about it, Minor Poison has always been the top deck in the meta, or one of the top decks in the meta for a very, very long time, so this definitely has to go at the very top of the S tier for now. And it's not too hard to play either. Some people say it's so hard to play, but it really isn't. Just because a deck has cycle cards doesn't make it that hard to play. You just have to play your broken little prince on the field, use the ability to destroy everything. Evo Skeletons, Evo Wallbreakers are so good for offense. If a deck is this broken, it's just inherently going to be a no-skill deck, I feel like. Okay, Giant Graveyard. Giant Graveyard was kind of a troll deck for a long time, but recently with the Bowler added in there and the double Evos, I feel like really helped the deck quite a bit. I mean, mainly the Evo Archers made Giant Graveyard a lot better than it used to be. And of course, it's very easy to play as well. But since it is still kind of a new deck, I mean, it's not a new deck, but it's only been seen a lot in the meta recently, so I don't want to go too crazy with it, even though it's very strong now and very easy to play. I think I'll just put it in the A tier, right above 2.6. Okay, Minor Wallbreakers Magic Archer. If you play this deck, you fail Geometry class, so you're trying to make up and perfect your Geometry skills. But real talk though, this deck is... oh, it's very no skill. Extremely no skill. I mean, a lot of decks here I feel like people think are so high skill, but guys, especially this deck, it's not as high skill as you think, man. You just spam the Magic Archer, then you completely fail, you miss, you don't line up on the tower, so then what do? You take out the Tornado and you line up everything on tower, and there's nothing you can do as the opponent to stop it. I feel like it's more so the Tornado that needs the nerf. There is one player who's been using this deck for a very long time, but the average player hasn't been using it for that long until recently when the Evo Knight and stuff came out, so I'll put it in the B tier for now, right above Balloon. Okay, we have this very quick cycle Logbait deck. It's kind of a, I wouldn't say a troll deck, but it's more like a fun deck. I don't think people would use this in like $1 million CRL in a very big deciding match. But Evo Wallbreakers do fit in this deck very well. I'll put it in the C tier. It's more of a fun deck that can counter some stuff very well, but it definitely does have its struggles as well. Okay, Xbow. If you play Xbow, I'm pretty sure North Korea is looking for you. So I would say just focus on that instead of Clash Royale. This deck has been pretty good in the past, in maybe 2018 to 2020. Not this exact variation. I think it used to have Mega Minion over Tesla and a few other variations, but right now it's not very good, and it hasn't been good for a while ever since they nerfed the Ice Mage to fully die to Fireball. But with that said, I feel like the double evolution is very strong in this deck. It makes the defense pretty much impossible to break through unless you play maybe Graveyard. Or of course Minor Poison. But if you're a Hog player, you're not getting through this deck. But I think I have to go for the C tier. It's so bad right now for most people. But I know the Xbow mains are just like bouncing up and down like little bouncy balls over the double Evos that they get to put in their deck now. I mean, I don't know. We could put it above Logbait. This Logbait deck. I guess I will, just because it's been a deck for a lot longer than this has. Okay, 3.0 Xbow. I feel like 3.0 Xbow used to be pretty high skill, but nowadays it's really not with the Evos and everything like that. You kind of just do stuff, and it works, usually. But a lot of the time it doesn't when you face the more broken decks, like, I don't know, maybe like this Goblin Drill deck or Giant Graveyard, stuff like that. It does actually counter this Minor Poison deck, I think, or at least it has a decent chance to win, and it does beat Piggies too quite often. But I'm not sure though now that it has the Evo Bomber. I feel like Evo Bomber might give Piggies the edge in that matchup. But it has been good for a very long time, kind of like 2.6. I could put it at the top of the B tier, but I think just because it's kind of easier to play now than it used to, and also it's been good for so long, I'll actually put it right behind 2.6, or I could still put it at the very top of the B tier. It's kind of hard to decide. You know what? I would say Xbow players probably deserve to be in the B tier instead. That's the only issue, so we could just leave it right there. Okay, Golem. This Golem deck is pretty new. Golem Pump has been good for a little bit, but not super long. Oh, my Google Home Mini just thought I was talking to it. I'm not talking to you, pal. Okay, back to the video. So Golem Pump, it's pretty good right now. It's been pretty good for a decent amount of time, but it's more of a newer thing. So I can't really put it too high up there. I think I'll have to go for the top of the C tier for now. It's very easy to play, of course. Electro Giant. If this tier list was a few months ago, I'd definitely put E-Giant way higher up, but E-Giant suffers so much right now against Cannoneer decks, so I can't really justify putting it very high. It's not very good in the current meta. I pretty much never see it anymore, even though I used to see it all the time. It is easy to play. And it has been viable for a little bit, but not super long, so I think I'll have to just dethrone Golem at the top of this C tier with E-Giant. Okay, Lava Hound, Lava Loon. I mean, people always do find a way to play Lava Loon, but I feel like in the double Evo meta, Lava Loon is struggling quite a bit because it doesn't really have two good cards to evolve. I don't think they'd prefer to have Evo Bomber in the deck if they could have another good evolution like an evolved Lava Hound itself or an evolved Mega Minion or something, so it doesn't exactly fit too well. I'm almost tempted to put it right in the... Oh, I don't know what just happened. I'm almost tempted to put it right in the D tier because of them going for Lava Hound first play against me sometimes. But that's their own issue to deal with, right? That's not my issue. So... Ooh, it's hard to say, it's hard to say. I might actually put it at the top of the C tier instead. Yeah. Not for this deck exactly, but just for Lava Loon in general, being a viable deck for a decent amount of time. Okay, we have Recruits. I don't even know what this kind of blasphemy is. If you play this deck, you most definitely have some type of issue, but I'm not exactly sure which issue, but you probably should consult with someone else. By the way, guys, this video is zero jokes, all seriousness. Nothing I'm saying is a joke, in case people couldn't tell. Okay, so... This deck. It's very weird. I feel like the double Evo doesn't really suit it too much either. But they kind of just have to throw that Evo Bomber in there just for the sake of using both Evo spots. I guess we could put it in the C tier. I'm just kind of trying to decide where in the C tier. I guess I'll put it right above Electro Giant in the C tier. It's a very low skill deck. It's not too good right now. It has seen some better days. Okay, Mega Knight Miner Wall Breakers. This deck is pretty solid right now. The Evo Wall Breakers definitely buffed it up quite a bit. Little Prince and Evo Bats also are super nice fits in the deck. It's been good for quite a while. So for that, I don't know. I think I might dethrone Xbow in the B tier with this deck. I have seen quite a bit of Mega Knight on top ladder recently, kind of surprisingly. Okay, Sparky. If you play Sparky, I would say you're probably a little bit grimy, unfortunately, and you probably fear showers and that sort of thing, right? I mean, am I wrong? You could answer that, Sparky players. Am I wrong? I don't know. I don't think so. Sparky has been viable, but it's also not been viable a lot of the time. Ooh, I could put the Trash Can in the D tier. Don't make me. I don't know. I mean, maybe more like C tier, right? Because it's not bad in the meta. Well, it is kind of bad, but it's so no skill that you can just sometimes starting hand your opponents and all of that. So we can put it in the C tier, right behind Royal Recruits. Okay, Royal Giant. Royal Giant fell off for a long time. Well, not a long time, but a few months. Before that, it was good for like 2 or 3 years straight. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. It definitely does work very well with the Evo Bomber. I don't really know why. I guess because people have to play their troops at the bridge to stop the RG, and then you just play your Evo Bomber onto them. So I don't know. I kind of want to put it high up, actually. Could it go above Xbow, though? I mean, yeah, I would say yeah. It could be above Xbow in the B tier, because it's a lot better right now than Xbow is, even though Xbow has been a deck for a longer time. Maybe even above Mega Knight. That seems good. Okay, next up we have Pekka Bridge Spam. Pekka Bridge Spam just suffers a lot of the time, but somehow the Pekka players still manage to find a way to be at the top of the meta. Ooh, I don't know exactly where it should go. Definitely not too high up though, because it's not a very good deck. Only Pekka 1-tricks ever play it. If you don't main Pekka, you definitely don't use Pekka on ladder. At least, not very much. The double evolution works okay for the deck, but not that well. I feel like evolutions like Evo Skeletons really started messing with this deck a lot. It can really just ruin you in 1 second. So for Pekka, it's been okay for a long time, but not good for a long time. I guess we can put it right next to Xbow in the C tier. I'll put Pekka above Xbow in the C tier. Okay, this deck. Do you guys know what this atrocity is? Me personally, I'm not really sure. It's just a very weird deck. I mean, once again, guys, if you play this deck, North Korea is ready for you. Maybe Mother Russia is ready for you as well, potentially, if you're on that level yet. This deck doesn't even play mortars a lot of the time, you just rocket cycle. But then again, Evo Bomber can also get a lot of damage sometimes with this deck. It's been good for quite a while when it had archers over Little Prince and Ice Spirit over Evo Bomber, so it definitely has been popping in the meta here and there, but it's never been one of the top decks or anything like that. I'll put it at the very bottom of the B tier. Okay, this deck, Splash Yard. Oh, guys, I know people are going to disagree with me here, but this thing, this piece of junk, S tier. You see, picture a dog taking a doo-doo, right? If I accidentally stepped in that, I would treat that doo-doo with more respect than if I accidentally stepped on this deck. If I stepped on a doo-doo, I would instantly just throw my shoe away and be very angry. But if I saw this, I would personally take my shoe to outer space and then attach it to a meteor. And then the meteor would crash somewhere and this deck would be destroyed along with it. I used to think Giant Graveyard was no skill, guys. Can you believe that? But then I saw this deck and I was like, wow, this is the true definition of no skill. And guess what, guys? This deck has been a top deck in the meta for so long. It's always been getting top finishes, top 10 finishes, top 1 finishes. And even completely bad Graveyard players have almost finished top 1 with this deck, even recently. So, I don't know. And these guys are always complaining. Players who main this deck, they always complain how bad Graveyard is, even though it's so good. So, yeah, I'll put this up here for you guys. E-Golem. You know what, guys? We have an empty D tier. There you go. E-Golem is a very interesting card. It was good in 2019. Ever since then, it hasn't been good. Maybe it was good in the Monk Phoenix meta, I think. And it's good right now. This deck is good, but it's more like a troll deck. Well, it's not a troll deck, but it's just a deck that you kind of play jokingly. I feel like it's kind of just a joke how you play this deck in order to win. But it does counter Cannoneer very well, which a lot of top ladder players have been using. So it's not as bad as it looks. But it's almost as bad as it looks, but just not quite. Okay, next up we have Ramrider. I could barely even find a Ramrider deck. Ramrider is so bad right now. There was one player who was playing Ramrider for a long time, a similar deck to this for a very long time, and he was always getting top finishes, but he was like the only player playing Ramrider. I haven't seen Ramrider for ages. So I guess we have another D tier contestant, but which is worse, Ramrider or E-Golem? I'm going to say Ramrider because E-Golem is better in the current meta than Ramrider is, so E-Golem can take that win. Okay, Three Musketeers. Man, why are all the D tier decks coming around all of a sudden? If you play this deck, I mean, I would say, what are you doing? What are you doing with your time? You're just wasting your time. You could be pushing 10 times faster with anything else in the game. This is a pretty low skill deck. You just pump up, then you play your cards, then try to double lane push your opponent, and that's pretty much all you do. Ah, man, I don't know. By the way, guys, you can copy any of these decks to play on ladder. They're pretty much all viable, maybe except the D tier decks. Well, E-Golem is viable too. But yeah, we'll put this at the very bottom of the D tier. I would say you're pretty strange if you play this deck, but maybe you're trying to just be different than other people. Okay, Balloon Freeze. I mean, Bowler is a very not nice card. I don't mind Balloon Freeze that much except Bowler, but I know a lot of you guys hate it. It's not very good in the current meta, but it was good for a long period of time until recently. I just think the champions and evolutions kind of pushed it out of the meta somehow. You can't even run Lumberjack in this deck anymore because you need the Evo Knight in there, unless you don't want to use your Evo spots. So where should this go? This hunk of junk deck. I mean, I guess it could go in the C tier, just because it was viable for a while. It's pretty bad right now, though. That's the only issue. Man, I don't even know. It can't go too high up. I guess I'll put it right above Pekka in the C tier. That looks pretty good. Okay, next up we have this Giant Double Prince deck. Well, actually Goblin Giant Double Prince. Pretty much nobody ever plays this deck except a few one-tricks who manage to get to the top of ladder quite often with this, even in seemingly bad metas, but now Goblin Giant is a pretty broken card. But yeah, this has to go in the D tier. I don't know why all these D tier decks are at the very end. I just don't know where in the D tier. I mean, it's probably better than Ram Rider, right? So I guess we can give it a very respectable mid to upper D tier. And lastly, we have Logbait, this traditional Logbait deck. Pretty much nobody plays it nowadays, but Guard's got a pretty big buff, so it's definitely better than it used to be. And Logbait has been a viable deck for a very long time, even though it's not meta or anything these days. I'm not sure where to actually put this. I mean, we can't put it too low because it's one of the longest reigning viable decks, right? So I guess I'll put it right above that Mortar deck in the B tier. And that's going to be my complete list. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye!